Fox's X-Men movies. Though their continuity may be questionable, there's no denying that they gave us some of the most memorable, iconic, and epic moments in superhero movie history. With 13 films released over the span of 2 decades, which one will take that number 1 spot? Time to find out. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video we are going to be ranking all 13 X-Men films. Fox's X-Men films have had a fairly interesting history. Over the last 2 decades, they have managed to produce some of the best comic book movies of all time, and some of the worst. So join me in this video as I rank all 13 of them from worst to best. So, without further ado, let's hop right into things. 13. X-Men Origins Wolverine. I would say this is the only fundamentally bad X-Men movie. But even having said that, I still find that there is a certain shitty, cheesy, corny B-movie charm to it. I remember seeing it twice in theaters back when I was 11, I think, because I enjoyed it that much. But as time continued on, I realized just how awful it is. The only positives are Jackman as Wolverine, obviously, and Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth. But everything else is just plain bad. The plot is nonsensical, the CGI is laughable, and the action is lackluster. And don't even get me started on their, Deadpool. Yikes. 12. Dark Phoenix. I truly don't find this to be as bad as everyone else thinks it is. When I left the theater, I thought it was perfectly alright. Just fine. Not too bad and not too good either. But certainly watchable with some mild enjoyment and genuine entertainment mixed in every so often. McAvoy and Fassbender are brilliant as always, even though we never really addressed the fact that this is supposed to be 30 years or so since First Class, and I think even Sophie Turner holds her own as well. But everything else is just bland, not particularly bad or anything, but it all just feels so very basic, nothing overly exciting or interesting, and definitely nothing new or inventive. It's just completely mediocre. 11. The New Mutants. Sadly, after 2 full years of delays, this film ended up being just plain fine. It has a great cast who all play their roles very well. I liked the new unique powers, I really dug the horror elements, but it feels so isolated to the point that it seems by the time the credits roll, nothing significant has really happened. They all conquer their fear and learn their lessons, but the story is pretty average and its CGI was hit or miss. But one of the biggest things for me, and a common theme in these X-Men films, is when the hell does this take place in the continuity? All in all, I found it mostly enjoyable, but equally as underwhelming. 10. XMen Apocalypse. What? Sorry, I must have been sleeping through this movie again. Look, I guess it's not particularly bad or anything, it has plenty of excitement and solid action woven throughout it, but overall, I do find this film to be mostly boring. What should have been the X-Men's biggest bad ended up being overshadowed by his severely underused 4 horsemen. I felt like each one of his followers could easily have taken him on single-handedly, and while Oscar Isaac did the best he could, it really just wasn't enough. The Quicksilver scene was a blast, but not quite as exciting as his Days of Future Past one. And while I did find Magneto's new life to be intriguing, we didn't get to spend nearly enough time in it. It should have been epic, ended up run-of-the-mill. 9. X-Men The Last Stand. Ah yes, the first crack at the Dark Phoenix saga. Look, this movie isn't actually that good, but I have such fond memories of it and have seen it so many times that I can't help but genuinely have fun watching it. The cast are all fantastic, honestly. Each person has their part to play and they do their job with what they've been given. The action is big, dumb blockbuster entertainment, and there's a really good time to be had here if you're willing to not take it too seriously. Where it falls flat is its story, with its sad attempt to adapt an iconic storyline from the comics, and some of the very attempted bold decisions they made ended up falling completely flat. It's a perfectly goofy, over-the-top mid-2000s superhero flick. If you take it at face value, you'll be alright. 8. The Wolverine. This film gets way more flack than it deserves, and I think 95% of that comes from its sloppy final act. Jackman is in peak physical and acting condition, giving us a stoic yet soulful performance as our weakened hero. The remainder of the cast do their jobs, but this is certainly Jackman's movie. The action is fast-paced and thrilling, although it certainly would have benefited from an R rating. I really enjoyed the story. There's just something about an unkillable hero that suddenly becomes vulnerable, both in the sense of their powers and themselves. The final act is pretty trash though, where it ends up being basically Wolverine versus a Transformer, and it's a little too out there for myself and most others to really grasp onto. 7. X-Men. Now we've gone way back to the beginning, to the one that started it all and possibly the film that ushered superhero movies into the spotlight and turned them into the mega hits they are today. It's definitely dated, it's super corny and ultra cheesy, but that's all part of its charm now. Every character was so well casted, and they each did a superb job in their respective roles. Although a lot of this movie really doesn't hold up in a lot of aspects, like its action, any CGI, some very obviously cringy one-liners, but where it does hold up is its characters, story, and surprisingly deep themes and messages about racism, prejudice, discrimination, and society's fear of the unknown. 6. Deadpool. A movie that was long overdue, especially after the atrocity they called Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Ryan Reynolds makes it very clear as soon as things kick off that he was born to play the role. Hilarious, charming, and quick-witted, Reynolds gives what is easily his most genuine and heartfelt performance of his entire career. He truly loves and understands every aspect of this zany, over-the-top character. The action is bloody, the language is coarse, and the laughs are non-stop in this R-rated gem that set the stage for further exploration into more mature superhero flicks. 5. Deadpool II. Believe it or not, I'm one of the very few who actually prefer the second over the first. For me, they went bigger, and that led to better. The jokes were funnier and landed more frequently, the action was more exhilarating, and the storytelling had more heart, and I felt it was overall far more creative than its predecessor. Although the CGI was pretty wonky. Everything I loved about the first Deadpool was only amplified in this superior sequel. 4. X2. An exceptional follow-up to the groundbreaking first film, a far more mature and braver take on the iconic characters. With bigger and more exciting action, more iconic characters, a more thought-provoking and personal story, and a far better aged film. This is the X-Men at some of their best, with some of the series' most memorable moments like the opening sequence in the White House, Wolverine's first real berserker rage, and Jean's ultimate sacrifice. Everything you, I, or anyone else loved about the first was done even better here. Hold up for just a quick second. If you're enjoying the video, don't get stuck in that 90% who are currently watching and not subscribe to my channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right now in order to find more content just like this. And while you're at it, don't forget to ring that little bell icon, that way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And now, back to the video. 3. X-Men First Class. A much-needed soft reboot with a fresh face in the director's chair. Matthew Vaughn took over after a couple of duds and gave us this retro take and completely re-energized the franchise and gave it its second wind. With a sleek 60s backdrop, a new take on your favorite characters, fast-paced spectacular action, a few good laughs, but most importantly was the story it told. It went back to where it all started, following Eric Lensher, a man hell-bent on revenge, finding Charles Xavier, a brilliant young mind with an extraordinary gift. Alongside them is Raven, a lifelong friend and a trusted ally with a cautious point of view, and together they grew and formed the X-Men. Of course, as things progress, they get complicated, hence the incredibly unique dynamic that Magneto and Professor X share across all of the films they appear in. Without this film's massive success, it's tough to say if the franchise would have continued on. 2. X-Men Days of Future Past. Acting as a sort of soft reboot as well for the franchise, Days of Future Past brings the old school and the new school together into a mind-bending time travel save-the-world epic. Jackman takes center stage once again after being noticeably absent from First Class, aside from that glorious cameo.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lensher.
Charles Xavier.
Go off.
As Wolverine's consciousness is sent back in time to his younger body in the 1970s in order to prevent the creation of the Sentinels, who will come to bring on the end of the world in the future. Once again, McAvoy and Fassbender showcase why they were the perfect choices to take over these iconic roles, and seeing it swap between them and the legends of Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen is marvelous. The stakes are higher than ever, the story swaps between the two timelines seamlessly, the Sentinels are terrifying but also a total blast to see on screen for the first time. Every actor and actress gives top-tier performances, and it has what might be the best scene in the entire franchise with Quicksilver's graceful kitchen run. And number 1 for this ranking has got to be Logan. The Wolverine movie we always wanted and deserved. A true, brutal, R-rated take on the character. Clearly a passion project for director James Mangold, as he very evidently put his entire heart and soul into Wolverine's swan song. Jackman gives his absolute best performance. It's raw, visceral, but also filled with heart and genuine emotion as Jackman plays the character for the 9th and final time after almost 2 full decades in the role. Meanwhile, Sir Patrick Stewart brings the exact same emotional punch to his final outing as Professor X as well, as he also gave a career best performance. Daphne Keane showed immense promise as an up-and-comer, Boyd Holbrook was fantastic as the villain, and of course we finally got to see Wolverine let loose with no strings attached in this ludicrously violent finale. It's easily the most down-to-earth, real, and emotional X-Men flick, and that's exactly why it's the best. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ranking. And feel free to let me know what you'd like to see for my next ranking video. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more content, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing that little bell icon. That way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching. And that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.